Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another reaction video. Today we have a song from Sen no Kiseki. I assume this is from the same series as a song I listened to quite a while ago. I believe Auntie from Patreon also requested that one, Ao no Kiseki. So I've got to assume this is from the same series just based on the Kiseki part. But this is Spiral of Erebos, so I'm not entirely sure what we're going to get here. All I know is that it's a final dungeon boss theme. So with that said, let's go. Alright, already sounds very anime. I blame that, like, higher end of the piano. Just dancing around up there is such an anime background music thing to do. And anime themes as well. Ooh. I can't tell if that's a distorted bass or like a baritone guitar part. It's gotta be a bass, it has too much low end. Ooh, alright. This is very triumphant for being a battle theme. I mean, I suppose it makes sense, but you always expect there to be a little bit more tension. This feels like it would be the, like, credits theme, you know, like after you win. Loving that, that melody. Also love the rhythm in the background. It kind of reminds me of Danny Phantom. That's right, sit on that ride cymbal. It's a very cut through, like, pingy ride bell. Very aggressive. That's good. Allows it to pierce the rest of the music. Now we got them obviously, like, MIDI trumpets. Ain't no way that's a real instrument. That's a keyboard sample, hands down. I like the synth string support, though. Ooh, okay. See, that kind of shifted more into what I would expect. It was a little darker in tone there for a second. It's very slappy snare in the background, too. It's got a good crack to it, you know, like you feel that the hit. It's also kind of flat. It's not taking up as much room in the mix as I would expect. I think they pulled it back in the mix quite a bit. It's not bad. A lot of video game music does that sort of thing. Kind of flattens out the music a little bit more to make some room for other sound design throughout the actual gameplay. That was kind of fun. I like what they did with the symbols there. If I could say words today. Tripping over my own tongue. This part is really beautiful. I really do like this. So tranquil. But they're not quite done yet. I do love that big energy transition back into it. I know it's gonna stop because it's a loop. So I know I was yapping quite a bit during that song. I think I said more than I intended to, and now it's gonna kind of leave me with a lack of info, but I'll try to add what I can here and expand on those thoughts. Like I said at the very beginning, this song sounded very triumphant for being an active battle theme. It didn't sound quite as pressing or like emotionally tolling as you would expect out of an epic battle, but I don't really know the context either. I only have in my head the screenshots from Kiseki from when I looked up screenshot images for my last thumbnail, and that's not going to give me anything for a completely different game, even if it's in the same series. So for all I know, that might be tonally accurate to the battle that's going on. So a song like this that's a little bit more upbeat kind of threw me off a little bit, but again, that might make sense in the tone of the game for all I know. So I'm not going to fault it for that. It just kind of surprised me given my expectation out of this genre being a little bit more aggressive and grandiose than what it turned out to be. I also know I kind of prodded at the not using real instruments thing during the song, but as I said during the song, that's perfectly fine. A lot of video game music does this. I'm not going to fault the song or the composer for not having an entire orchestra at their beck and call. That's completely unrealistic. It's just noticeable sometimes with certain libraries, especially this MIDI, especially on that trumpet. You could really tell that it was not a real instrument and very definitely not sampled off of one that was more recent. It felt lower fidelity, like it was one that was built into the keyboard that they were using rather than using a higher end sound library off of a DAW somewhere else, be it Ableton or whatever else. So I'm not sure how to feel about that one because I feel like it could have been made with higher fidelity samples, but all in all, it did exactly what it needed to. It got a great trumpet part, played it, got out of there, and while that may be just my personal bias wanting to hear that extra fidelity, there's no real need for it, especially in video game music like this. It's in the background. You're not really focusing on it all that much too often, and even when you are, it's usually when you're listening to stuff like this after you've played the game, and that doesn't bother you as much because it holds that extra weight of that experience that you've had as a gamer. So it's a slew of like, I can't really give that opinion accurately as somebody who hasn't played the game, but of course me listening to this without that experience is going to miss that context and not have any connection to it. The song is great, and I want to make sure I say that so people don't think I'm shitting on it, because it is very well composed. There are definitely those like little technical like malformities that I'm like, hey, I would prefer if it did this, but that's not necessarily slighting the overall composition, which is actually very well done. I love the guitar, the drums were perfectly on point. Nothing fell out of place there, especially from my own perspective. While there were other instruments in there that were definitely not using the real instruments like the trumpet, that didn't feel incorrect. If anything, the sound of using those MIDI trumpets and such, like the synths and everything, those strings, it kind of is its own sound in a way. Like it feels like its own genre. Like JRPG music has been around forever. Like let's not forget how old that genre is. So like hearing something like this that's using some of those older samples and older techniques feels a little bit refreshing in a way, instead of hearing the extremely overproduced, while very high end and high quality stuff that comes out of like the Final Fantasy series nowadays. It's kind of nice to hear stuff like this that's a little bit more simple and still a very good overall composition. And that sort of impact isn't lost on me. I played the NES, SNES, N64, you name it. I loved games. I loved JRPGs. I played a bunch of them. So hearing this sound is actually quite nostalgic for me, because that's the sound around the time where I was like at peak video game age. And that's kind of cool. I do like that I'm actually hearing that instead of just hearing the extremely well produced, mind you, but also kind of overbearing high quality that is being demanded by the industry nowadays. So at very least in that context, with that nostalgia in my own life, this song does hit me a little bit different. Maybe not the same way somebody who's experienced the actual game itself would, but in the way that I can empathize with the sound and remember a time where I heard a song very similar to this when I was playing my own JRPGs back in the day. So I think I'm going to end it here because I've gone on a lot of tangents. I've had to restart my thoughts quite a few times, and that's not the fault of the song. It's just that I had a lot of thoughts and I didn't really know where I wanted to go with them. So that's going to be up to editor me to fix that in post and try to make something coherent out of all this yapping I've been doing. But if you like this video and whatever comes out of it, you want to see more, drop a request down below in the comments and I will do my best to get to it. Does not matter what property it's from or anything. And thank you again, Auntie, for putting this into the Patreon producer queue. And if you want to see more in the future, you know how to follow me and support me and all that. And I will see you in the next video. Goodbye!